He stood in the doorway, frozen. The kind of stillness that comes not from calm, but from a soul breaking in real time. Rain hammered against the windows of the estate, but inside, the only sound was water dripping. Dirty water. Brown, foul-smelling water that soaked into expensive marble floors. His mother sat on the cold ground, trembling, her gray hair plastered to her face. His 2 sons stood beside her, their small bodies shaking, eyes wide with fear and confusion, and standing above them, bucket still tilted in her manicured hands, was his wife. The woman he had married 6 months ago. The woman he thought would bring light back into his life. She looked up at him, her face drained of color, lips parted but no words coming out. For a moment, nobody moved. Then his mother whispered, her voice barely audible, "My son, we did not want to burden you. Some betrayals break the heart, but some awaken the soul." This is the story of how a man with everything discovered who truly loved him and who only loved the wealth he owned. How does a woman like her enter the life of a man like him? What kind of person smiles in your face while plotting cruelty behind your back? And why would anyone do something so unforgivable to the people who never asked for anything but kindness? To understand that, we have to go back. Before the wedding. Before the lies. Before the mask she wore so carefully began to crack. This is not just a story about betrayal. It's about blindness, about grief, about the dangerous things we invite into our lives when we are too lonely to see clearly. And it's about the moment when a man who thought he had lost everything realized he still had the only things that ever mattered. Michael Harrison was not born into wealth. He grew up in a small, rural town in the Midwest, the kind of place where everyone knew your name and your business. His father died when he was 8, leaving his mother, Dorothy, to raise him and his younger sister alone. She worked 3 jobs, cleaned houses, baked pies for the local diner, and sewed clothes late into the night just to keep the lights on. Michael watched her sacrifice everything, and he made a promise to himself that one day he would give her the life she deserved. By the time he was 30, he had built a tech company from nothing, turning a small software idea into a multi-million-dollar enterprise. 10 years later, he was a billionaire. He bought his mother a home with a garden she had always dreamed of. He sent his sister's kids to the best schools. He married a woman named Claire, a kind-hearted teacher who loved him when he had nothing. They had 2 sons together, Jacob, age 9, and Ethan, age 6. For a while, life was perfect. But cancer does not care about happiness. Claire fought for 2 years before she passed away quietly one Sunday morning, holding Michael's hand. He was 47 years old, and he felt like the world had gone silent. His sons grieved. His mother grieved. And Michael, for the first time in his life, did not know how to keep moving forward. He threw himself into work, but the house felt empty. The boys needed a mother figure. He needed companionship. He told himself he would never replace Claire, but maybe, just maybe, he could find someone to help him carry the weight. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you, and if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Her name was Tasha Monroe. She was 32, beautiful in the way that turned heads in every room she entered. Long, dark hair, sharp cheekbones, a smile that seemed warm but never quite reached her eyes. They met at a charity gala in Manhattan, an event Michael attended more out of obligation than interest. She approached him at the bar, introduced herself as an event coordinator for nonprofits, and spoke about her passion for helping underserved communities. She asked about his sons with what seemed like genuine care. She laughed at his stories. She listened when he talked about Claire, nodding with sympathy that felt real. Over the following months, she became a fixture in his life. She visited the estate, brought gifts for the boys, and sat with Dorothy in the garden, complimenting her roses. Jacob and Ethan were polite, but distant. They missed their mother and were not ready to see someone else in her place. Dorothy watched quietly, saying little, but her eyes lingered on Tasha longer than usual. Michael, however, saw only what he wanted to see. A second chance. A way to stop feeling so alone. 6 months after they met, he proposed. She said yes, with tears in her eyes, and he believed every one of them. The wedding was small, elegant, held at the estate under white tents and string lights. Tasha looked like a vision in her dress, and Michael felt something he had not felt in years. Hope. But if you looked closely, really closely, you might have noticed the way her smile faltered when the cameras were not on her, the way she glanced around the estate, calculating, measuring, the way she looked at Dorothy and the boys, not with love, but with something colder, something that whispered, "You're in my way." It started small, little changes that Michael brushed off as Tasha settling into her new role. The longtime housekeeper, Maria, who had been with the family for 15 years, was let go. Tasha said she wanted to hire someone more modern, more efficient. The cook, who made the boys' favorite meals, was replaced with a chef who prepared dishes they did not recognize. Tasha redecorated the house, removing photos of Claire, replacing them with abstract art and mirrors. When Michael hesitated, she cried and said she just wanted to feel like the home was theirs, not a shrine to the past. He apologized and let her continue. Then she suggested Dorothy move to the guest house at the edge of the property. She framed it gently, saying the older woman deserved her own space, her own peace and quiet. Dorothy did not argue. She packed her things quietly and moved without complaint, though her eyes were sad. The boys noticed everything. Jacob, the older one, tried to talk to his father. "Dad, she doesn't like us. She looks at us like we're annoying." Michael sighed, exhausted from work and grief and guilt. "She's adjusting, buddy. Give her time. She's trying." But Tasha was not trying. Behind closed doors, her voice changed. She snapped at the boys for being too loud, for leaving toys out, for asking questions. She told them they were lucky to live in such a big house and should be grateful instead of whining. When they mentioned their mom, she would go silent, her jaw tight, and leave the room. Dorothy saw it all but said nothing. She had learned long ago that some battles are not won with words, and she did not want to add to her son's pain. But one evening, when Michael was late coming home from a business meeting, Tasha's patience finally snapped. Ethan, the younger boy, accidentally spilled juice on the new white couch. He froze, terrified. Tasha stood slowly, her face cold. "You little brat. Do you have any idea how much that cost?" Ethan's lip trembled. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." She raised her hand and slapped him across the face. Not hard enough to leave a mark, but hard enough to shock him into silence. Jacob ran into the room, eyes wide. "Don't touch him!" Tasha turned on him, her voice low and venomous. "You think you can talk to me like that? I'm not your mother. I don't have to put up with you." She pointed toward the hallway. "Get out of my sight, both of you." The boys ran to Dorothy's guest house, tears streaming down their faces. She held them close, her heart breaking, and whispered promises that everything would be okay. But she did not know if that was true. If you're still watching at this point, drop a comment with, "I'm still here." Let's see who's truly following this shocking story. Michael began to notice the tension, but Tasha was careful. She played the role of the misunderstood stepmother beautifully. When he asked why the boys seemed so distant, she sighed and said they resented her for not being Claire. She cried and said she was trying so hard, but they refused to accept her. Michael felt torn. He loved his sons, but he also wanted his marriage to work. He wanted to believe that time would heal everything. Tasha began to isolate him further. She suggested he spend less time with Dorothy, saying the older woman was manipulating him with guilt. She planned trips for just the two of them, leaving the boys with Dorothy for days at a time. She whispered doubts into his ear late at night, making him question his own instincts. And slowly, he began to pull away from the people who loved him most. Then, 3 months into the marriage, Michael had to travel to London for a major business deal. He would be gone for 10 days. He hesitated, sensing something was wrong, but Tasha reassured him with kisses and promises that she would take care of everything. The moment his plane took off, the mask came off completely. Tasha stopped pretending. She moved Dorothy out of the guest house entirely, forcing her into a small room on the ground floor near the laundry. She told the boys they were no longer allowed to eat in the dining room and had them take their meals in the kitchen like staff. She yelled at them for the smallest mistakes, belittled them, and made them feel worthless. Dorothy tried to intervene, but Tasha threatened to have her removed from the property entirely. "You're here because Michael pities you," she hissed. "But I own this house now, and if you don't stay quiet, I'll make sure you never see those boys again." Dorothy, old and frail, had no choice but to endure. The boys clung to her at night, whispering that they wanted their dad to come home, but Michael was an ocean away, unaware that the people he loved most were suffering in his absence. Michael's meetings in London wrapped up 2 days earlier than expected. He did not tell Tasha. Something in his gut told him not to. He caught an overnight flight and arrived at the estate just after dawn. The house was quiet. Too quiet. He walked through the grand foyer, past the redecorated rooms that no longer felt like home, and followed a faint sound. Crying. He moved toward the back of the house, near the service courtyard, a place he rarely went. His 2 sons beside her, soaked and shivering. And Tasha, standing above them with an empty metal bucket in her hands, laughing. "Maybe now you'll learn to stay out of my way," she said, her voice dripping with contempt. Michael's heart stopped. Tasha turned and saw him. Her face went white. The bucket slipped from her fingers and clattered to the ground. "Michael, He held up a hand. His voice was calm, but there was a weight to it that silenced her immediately. "Don't." He walked past her without another glance and knelt beside his mother. Her hands were shaking. Her eyes were filled with tears she had been holding back for months. "My son," she whispered, "we did not want to burden you." Michael's chest tightened. He pulled her into his arms, then reached for his sons, holding all 3 of them close. His body shook, not with anger, but with a grief so deep it felt like drowning. He had failed them. He had been blind, and they had suffered because of it. Michael stood slowly and turned to face Tasha. She tried to speak, tried to explain, tried to cry her way out of it, but he simply shook his head. "Pack your things," he said quietly. "You have 1 hour." Within days, his lawyers had the marriage annulled. Every contract, every document, every clause was dissected. Tasha had signed a prenuptial agreement that left her with nothing if the marriage ended due to her misconduct. Witnesses came forward. The boys, Dorothy, even staff members she had bullied. The evidence was overwhelming. She left the estate with 2 suitcases and no money, no home, no reputation. She had gambled everything on a lie and lost. Michael did not feel victorious. He felt hollow, but he also felt something else. Clarity. He moved his mother back into the main house, into the room beside his. He sat with his sons every night, listened to them, apologized to them, and promised he would never let anyone hurt them again. Slowly, the house began to feel like home again, not because it was grand or expensive, but because the people in it loved each other. True wealth, Michael realized, is not measured in dollars or mansions or power. It is measured in the people who stay with you when everything falls apart, the people who suffer in silence because they love you too much to add to your pain, and the people who, even after being hurt, still choose to forgive. So let me ask you this. If you were in Michael's place, would you have forgiven yourself for being so blind? Would you have seen the signs earlier? Or would you, like him, have wanted so badly to believe in love again that you ignored the truth? And what about Tasha? Was justice served? Or should she have faced more consequences for what she did? Tell us in the comments. We want to hear your thoughts. And if this story moved you, if it made you think about the people in your own life who truly matter, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because sometimes the greatest reminder we can receive is this: the people who love you will never ask you to choose between them and your peace. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next story.